One and a two and a...
And just like that, we were led into another brand new stream right here on the Long Box Punk. That's me. I'm Chris. I am the Punk, and I am joined also by Chris. And we are bringing you a double Chris Dream Sunday matinee stream. There it is of indie comics. We're going to talk mechs. We're going to talk kaiju. We're going to talk process. We're going to get into all sorts of fun stuff. Chris, dude, thanks for making time in the insane schedule that you have right now to hang out with me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for making the time. This has been awesome. I'm looking forward to this because I think I reached out in maybe February and everything like that. I was like, hey, I don't have all the info for you, but I'm just putting it on your radar now so then we can eventually do it. So I'm glad we could find land a time. So
yeah, it's that's like the wild thing is I keep having creators reach out like, hey, do you have space in the next couple of weeks? I'm like, I don't. Like, I'm booked into June right now, which is like wild. I'm not going to complain. I love that people want to come on and talk comics because I love talking comics and music with like-minded people. So stoked to have you here.
And then depending on where they're at in their processes, it's like, hey, I don't even have like a pitch sentence or like a title, but I have an idea. It's just like, where's your press release? Where's your this, that, and you know what I mean? Like, where's your package? Almost. So sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's 100% real. And then there's some that it's like, hey, I don't have the Kickstarter yet. I've got a title, but I don't have the finished cover yet. I'll get it to you. I'm like, okay, just schedule it and like we'll get there. And if I have to go dig it on Kickstarter or what social media to find a cover, like I do. And that's how we make stuff. Like that's how it just takes the work that, being willing to do all that stuff to have a show that I get to have some fun with. So
yeah.
Happy to talk all those things. Can't wait to get into the details with you. But first, being a comic show, I have to ask, like, what's your origin story? How did you get into comics to begin with and then start creating comics?
Yeah, so I actually started with comics, not with comics themselves, but like the derivatives or the movies, right? So I was a 90s kid and I grew up with the Batman Returns, the TMNT movies and things like that. And then my uncle was like, these are comics, right? I'm like, what do you mean these are comics? And then so he came back over one day with like a long box full of oh my God, I'm blinking. Nightfall Batman, where Bane versus Bat. And so I was just like, oh my God, like it blew my mind. And I ferociously read those books and just completely destroyed them. And then I just started reading, Turtles, obviously, and then X-Men. And then, kind of took me into my high school years. And then I kind of did that sabbatical that it seems most people do, because they either do sports or girls or both or whatever, you know what I mean? They just, they get sidetracked on their own quest. And so, yeah, I just have always loved comic book movies and comic book TV shows before they were like the thing that they are now, as like I vividly remember seeing like Ghost Rider, like the trailer from I'm like, holy crap, like that's like Ghost Rider. It's the first time it's happening. And then now you look at it and it's just like, it's old hat. But the origin story is very much just kind of grew up with it my entire life. I played, the card games and things like that, Hero Clicks, all those deep cut nerdy type things. And then just kind of kept with it until I got to a point where I'm like, I think I want to do this myself. And I know I might be jumping ahead of myself, but it was just very much like the love of what these stories can mean in different visual mediums. And that's what kind of has brought me to here and kind of put me through this career, I guess we call it. So,
Yeah. And you've got a wide variety of work experience too, that you've done. And like, it seems like as far as my social media research stalking has gone, it's always kind of involved the creative storytelling elements. Like, is this something that you grew up just like ingrained in story?
Yes, I've always been very much a story like lover. I mean, I think it's just from being in a time where the 90s where you didn't have many options in terms of like VHS tapes, like you had like 10, but you
Yeah.
would maybe watch those over and over. And then, when we got cable, it was like Toonami, and you start to see these things over and over again. You just start to pick up things. And I very much became a Disney person in that regard. Like I loved all those kind of classic 90s Disney movies. I mean, I know it's not an animated one, but like Homeward Bound and like how you can care about animals and things like that. So I just always loved it. And then to see how creators put their heart on their sleeve in a real way into these pages and panels, like to me, I always felt like it was almost like a riddle or like a mystery. It's like, okay, is the writer talking to me directly through these words, or are they trying to say something with the, you know what I mean? Like there's the levels of like, okay, this, like James Tynion, for example, he's telling you something straight from his heart, even though someone else is saying it. And so I always loved finding that through like comics and like, what's the real meaning of this? And what are they trying to say? Are they, what is it, the title, the issue, the themes? And so I always kind of just, I guess, figuring that out has always just been something I really love. And just truth, like how good storytelling can make you, I mean, even bad storytelling, because sometimes the worst thing can happen. You're like, oh my God, that was terrible, but I kind of loved it. And so where can you learn from, and how can you grow as a creator or just as a interperson in entertainment, and just, try and be open-minded in that regard. So yeah, I've always loved that whole process and how it's made and things like that. So
Yeah. And so not to go, super deep right off the bat, but I was reading, I mentioned before we started, I just read your December post on Substack.
oh my God.
And
excuse any typos.
No, I don't even care about typos. Because I'm also after the heart of what's being said. And so even with comics and with movies, with music, like I tend to give an insane amount of grace at meeting. Like I just ignore typos. Like, okay, yeah, you had a typo. Who hasn't written a typo? Oh, like this panel or like that audio cut was weird in the movie, and I still heard something from the previous shot, and I shouldn't have, like, whatever. The lighting wasn't right, or, I overlook a lot of that stuff because I know as creators, like it takes a lot to make a story and to tell a story. And so I see flubs or issues or whatever, and I'm like, whatever. Like I don't let it get in the way of the story. But in your Substack, it very much felt like you were taking time to kind of just pour your soul onto the article about, like, I've been through a lot. Like this has not been an easy process. And I'm also eager and hopeful about launching this Kickstarter and getting this story out there and finally having the comic be alive instead of just a thing that we're working on. So like, walk me through this process of having the idea for Marcus Walker and then, building the team around you to create it. How did what's the origin of Marcus Walker? Like, where did this story come from?
Sure. And I'm since you've asked, and I'll be super transparent. So again, if it's a little raw, I'm just being honest. So I guess truthfully, it all kind of started about 10 years ago when my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and unfortunately, she had lost her battle. But before she did, I had this moment because before I became in entertainment, I was in track and field. I was a scholarship athlete. I was a master's graduate at Concordia Irvine, where I was getting my master's in coaching at the same time. And I had a lot of experiences. I had a high school girl compete. She, won state, got a scholarship. I had, so to speak, the highest high with her as a high school student. And then when I got the college gig, I maybe we'll call it lesser than of experience. I don't want to put anyone down, but it was not the experience I had wanted. And I quickly realized, am I going to be predicating my happiness on potential students who are going through their 18s and 22 time age? And, they're struggling with their identities, their beliefs, their whatever. It's college, right? And then my mom, being the smart woman that she was like, go to Hollywood. Like you got your BA in American Studies, you minored in film, you've always loved storytelling. Like go do it. Like stop, burn the boat and go do the thing. And I was like, okay. So I figured out that I was able to still apply for internships because I was still technically a student, even though it was in completely different fields of study. And I basically worked for a video game studio doing social media. I worked for Bo Flynn, who is Dwayne Johnson's producing partner. I make the joke, and I don't know if Bo's heard it or not, but he's the guy who made Black Adam. And I remember when I was like, when I got the job, I was like, hey man, I know you're doing Black Adam. Can I read it? And he's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, in hindsight, maybe you should have. Like that thing could have used some love. But yeah, and so then it is what it is. Again, I'm not here to throw shade or anything like that. So but the end of my internship, I'm like, hey, I love comics, I love this stuff. Where do I go? And they're like, you should go to UTA. And so I went to UTA, which was, a talent agency. Figured out my way into comics, kind of made myself known as the comic book person. I found like the #1 comic book agent, and I basically just did like an interview with him, being like, hey, this is what I know. He was lucky enough, or I was lucky enough for him to say, sure, I trust you. And then he kind of introduced me to kind of like, the major players in terms of Boom and Dynamite involved. And then I was able to, bring in James Tynan in a real way, Joshua Williamson, Sean Murphy, Roy Akupe, all those things. And then I quickly realized I didn't want to be an agent. And then had the opportunity. Disney was like, hey, do you want to do what you do, but do for us and be on the creative acquisitions team, which basically is just a glorified book scout. It's a much nicer title. And so, yeah, I did comics reviewing and looking at how do I bring an adaptation to Disney in a real way. And so during that time, I very much was like, I was reviewing 600 titles or something like that. And I just got to the feeling like I want something else. I kind of want this like Joseph Campbell-esque story. And my boss was like, hey, you should just write it down and see what happens. And then I did, and I got laid off by Bob Iger's like a few months later. And then I was just like, how do I take everything I had just learned, right? And how do I put that into something that I had put so much of my heart into helping other people succeed? And I was just like, what do I do now? And I had two thoughts. Was I was going to marry my girlfriend and write a comic. And when I told her I wanted to write a comic, I knew that I was going to marry her. So now she's my wife, and now I'm writing this comic. And that is a very long-winded way of setting the table to how this came to be. And then, so yeah, specifically with Marcus, I really just wanted this story about two brothers that kind of reflected the Joseph Campbell-esque story that was very much like Jason Aaron meets Sean Murphy, but also like a Saturday morning cartoon meets Toonami. And I didn't want to write a story about mechs and kaijus that featured a family. I wanted to write a story about a family that just happened to be set in a world of mechs and kaijus, because I mean, people are like, what's different about your story? I'm like, well, Marcus isn't the pilot. Like, that's the first thing. Like, Marcus may not even have like, he doesn't even feel like he's the main hero of his own story, like, I don't know how you feel about, I don't want to speak for you, but there's moments in my life where I'm like, I don't feel like the hero of my story. Like, there's things that happen and you're just like, well, crap, like that didn't work. And so I very much wanted Marcus to kind of be like almost a civilian, everyday person type of feel to it. And so, yeah, I just kind of wrote this pitch down, and when I was looking for creators, I looked at Power Rangers just to kind of get inspiration. And Simone Ragazzoni, who is my co-creator and artist, was working on New Dak and Dawn, which is the Power Ranger book, and Ranger Slayer book, excuse me. And I just sent an email, and his manager Enzo was able to translate because Simone doesn't speak English, and he believed in it. And so off to the races.
That's wild. Like, so a couple things to pull out of that.
Yeah.
One, I love the manager at Disney saying, just write down the idea. Like, just like, what do you wait? Go, like, write the thing. Because it feels like a commonality of a lot of creatives have the ideas, but they are up against that bubble of like, anxiety. Is it worth it? Is it good? Like, I don't know. And then it takes someone else to just like push you through that bubble so that it bursts. And then suddenly you're like, oh my gosh. And you just can't stop writing.
Yep.
And so I love hearing like the communal aspect of that, of it took someone else to encourage me to write down the idea and the story that I had. I think that's great. And then like your mom being the support that she was, of saying, just go to Hollywood, like just go. Cause as much as as hard as it is sometimes for me to recognize the support that my mom is, cause it comes out very passive aggressive most times. It also is like, it's a constant of just like when I was heavy into theater, she was like, listen, if you have to wait tables, but you're getting to be on stage doing theater, cool. Like that's the dream. And I will come and tip you more than 20%. And like it's those things that you look back on after their past that you can actually like appreciate instead of in the moment being like, shut up, mom, I'm not gonna wait tables, you're gonna be a star. Like you know, and it's those moments that I think are the ones that stick with you. Also, for what it's worth, fuck cancer. It is. I just lost my aunt from cancer like 3 weeks ago, and it just like cancer sucks, dude. And so there's that. But I love the approach of I want it the using the line of like he's not even the pilot is such a strong like first step into people's attention, because every mech story focuses on the pilot, and it focuses on the people that are driving the mechs or, you know, running the mechs or work for the company that made the mechs. And it's so to have a story that is just set in a world where they exist, I think is a super rad approach. Did that come from like, I know these other stories exist where it's about the pilot and I want to do something different? Or did it like, how did you end up with that as the setting and the premise for the story?
So when they say, you know, write what you know, and during that time, I was like, okay, well, one of the things I really want to deal with is, again, not to talk poorly about anyone or throw anyone under the bus, but like, you know, my family had very different ways of handling grief and passions. And, you know, I had to kind of take on the motherly role, not by choice, but just because, you know, there's a void and something has to fill that vacuum. Yep. And, you know, did I maybe handle things a certain way? Could I have done better? Could I have done worse? Could my 9-year younger brother do better? Was he better equipped than I was? And I wanted to find a way to put that in a story of how do young men or young people deal with a situation where they're maybe thrusted into something that they have no context on hand to handle. So maybe that's a kaiju attacking, or maybe that this thing happens that then you make a choice and that choice ends up being wrong, or maybe it's right. And, you know, and so I wanted to, as a first-time creator, just be like, okay, how do I figure this out? And so one of the things me and my brother always loved was, you know, Toonami and comics and things. And so one of the things that really spoke to me was like, okay, if I was going to combine Saturday, like Western meets Eastern, how do I do that that's respectful? Because again, for those who don't know, like no one on our team is Japanese, and we don't want to culturally appropriate in any way. So how do you do that? And so being a Californian, I've been very lucky to go to Hawaii because it's, you know, a little bit easier and cheaper, just because you're California to Hawaii. And so, I thought to myself, well, I heard it somewhere that America's version of Japan is Hawaii. And I was like, that's a great way to just kind of slip into it where I can be respectful. So, and plus outside of Lilo and Stitch and Moana, I've never really seen a story where you see Hawaii or a fictitious version of Hawaii be affluent, or where do you see, you know, Hawaiians succeeding in a way. And plus I wanted to have characters that looked like all of these worlds where I felt like not inclusive with a big E, but just felt natural. It felt like this is a genuine world, and you're not catering to people. You're just like, these are the people that live here. So yes, I'm going to include them in my story. And so that was just kind of the premise. And so that's kind of the setting. And then with Marcus and Caleb, I mean, it was just really about two brothers and how do you kind of grapple with those things. And as a first time creator, I just wanted my best to, you know, give you, what is it they say, you know, sugar makes the medicine go down type of a thing. So if I could give you the big bombastic nature of Simone's mechs and arts and that, but then hopefully give you a story where you fall in love with the characters and you're able to make it your own and attach yourself to that in a real way. Because those were the stories that always resonated with me, specifically at Disney. It's like, okay, who can I pitch this to? Like, let's say, oh, this comic is, I'll take Department of Truth, right? Like, oh, this is X-Files, but if you believe in the conspiracy, it comes true, right? So, and it's like, you know, there's the lead. And so you kind of easily pitch that as something. Or another one, what's another one I can think of? It's just like, what is the human hook to your story that then can be marketed? I know it's very corporate sounding, but that's like the truth. And so I just tried my best to incorporate everything I learned with Simone to try and have that, you know, that combination. It's a creative exercise, right? And so that's what we tried our best to do. So
and
I hope that answers the question.
I think too, like yes, thinking about the corporate side of comics is one of those things that is easy to scoff at. Like, I'm making comics. Like, what do you mean I need to, like, I don't want to sound stuffy or corporate, but also you have to think about that. So like, that's the other side of making comics is you don't
Mhm.
just, well, I have a comic, so here it is, people buy it. Like, you have
Yeah.
to develop the corporate side of it, of like, this is a business, you
Yeah.
spent money to make the product, now you have a product, how do you get the product in front of people that are A, gonna enjoy it or be interested in it, and then B,
Mhm.
convince them to give over their money to then like exchanging of goods. Like, how you have to think about those things, and that's often the thing that I hear a lot of first time creators say is like, I wasn't ready for that. Like, I thought you make the comic and then you post about it and people find it, and it's like, yeah, but how are they going to find it if you're not
Yeah.
doing your job of spreading the word about it and doing
Yeah.
podcasts and saying yes to events and doing all of those things. And that's, as a creator myself, like, that's what I'm currently thinking is, I have a box of comics that we made and kickstarted last year, and I've got the excess of our print run, and I'm like, these can't just sit in my office. Like, I need
Yep.
to move this product. And so talking with peers and meeting other creatives here locally, to me in Ohio, I'm like, okay, well, what events are you doing or do you know of that I can go and set up or talk to people or try and sell some books at, or like, what does that look like? And now I'm suddenly getting traction of, oh, I have this event coming up, and I was offered a booth at a free comic book day store, and like all of these different things, just because now I'm putting myself out there and doing the work of the business side of it, of like, I got to move this product. I can't, because we're about to kickstart we have 2 books that we're kickstarting this year. Like, I can't end up with twice more what I already have. Like, I need space. I don't have that much space. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating to think about, like, that how creatives are creatively focused, but to have someone that's got the experience of the business side of that,
Yeah.
is a very fascinating marriage, especially with an artist that like doesn't have English as his primary language. What
Yeah.
has that been like? Like, is it constantly working with his go-between to translate the script even? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I'm gonna pivot back to your last question because I have an answer for it, because you asked how did you pick between the pilot, and also people have come to me and they're like, oh, your book is this or it's that. And even as me thinking as a first time creator, I was trying to do something different. People are still going to compare your stuff until they read it. And even then, if they don't read it, they're going to have subjective opinions about it before they even look at it. Because guess what? It's comics and it's the internet. So
Yep.
I had that thought, wanted to make sure I said it. Now I'll pivot back. No, but the wonderful thing about this is, so during that time, the one thing I had a lot of experience with is that, for those who don't know, my girlfriend, now wife, is Quebecois, so she spoke French, and so I learned at the time I was meeting Simone and her at around the same time, and so I had to be very patient in terms of understanding cultural differences or language exchanges. And so the first few times with him was just, his manager would be there, but then we definitely had, okay, we have to just be better at this. So whether it's, Google Translate, DeepL, what works best. And so what we figured out was, when we did the scripting, all the panel breakdowns would be in red, and then all the onomatopoeias or sound effects would be in light blue, and all the dialogue would be in black. So when he would start concepting the page, he would just basically look out the red and then try to incorporate the sound effects as best he could, or sometimes we would just have the letterer do that. So specifically for that, it was, I would write 2 sentences and he would make me look like a much better writer than I actually am. Like, I would be like, hey, I'm trying to get this. I quickly realized I did not need to tell Simone what to do. Like, he obviously has put the time and energy. Like, he has, if I have a secondary goal with this Kickstarter, I hope it's that people recognize his talent, because he has put so much time and effort into this. And I think he's ready for the big 2. And I think he should be seen as such. And so for me to say, hey, I want this feeling or this intent, he nailed it. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he was ever offered the opportunity for maybe some quieter moments, some moments where it's very much just character work. And I mean, I know I'm biased, but at the same time, if I'm just giving my abject opinion, like, he crushed it, like, he really found a way to convey emotion and tonality. I mean, again, how do I make a mech kaiju book not be Neon Genesis Evangelion or Gundam or Pacific Rim? I have to make it about Marcus and Caleb. I have to make you feel like this. Like, I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty of the mechs and the kaijus because they've been done and by much better people. So I just want to I want to jump into the story and just throw you into it. And I want you to focus on these two people. And so for him to kind of almost immediately get that and then set the tone with his like energy and his panel layouts, like, I've been very, very spoiled, I'll say, because I don't know if that's going to be the case every time, because everyone's telling me like that never happens, or like for you guys to just hit it off. And I don't know any better because I've never had another trip. I'm just like, okay, like, cool. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, it was just I just got very lucky that me and him just kind of clicked, because I'm seeing him right now at MegaCon, and we still don't speak the same language, but we talk just through, miming or DeepL translations. And it's like, we can have a full conversation. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I actually was, God, where the heck was I? I was just somewhere where I saw there were two people that spoke different languages, and the one would speak into their phone and then hold it to the person they were talking to, and it would translate it out. And then the person being translated to was like, oh, and then they would speak into it. And like, it was literally like just using the phone to live translate. And I understood that that's how that works. But being someone that I don't do well in new places very often, especially when the language is different, I just am like, I can't travel internationally because I would, it's too anxious for me. But seeing that happen like that, I was like, oh, it's just that simple. Like, that's insane. And I think it was just like at a restaurant or something, and they were like ordering something to eat, and it was just, that's how they had to do it. And I just remember thinking like, that's way more simple than it seemed in my brain. So like, cool. But it is, I think it is something unique when you find your creative partner that immediately just clicks. And like, that's the sweet spot that I think every creator is after. So definitely hold on to it. And with that in mind, like this isn't just a one shot, right? Like, you have a 6-issue plan for it.
Yeah. Again, so how we originally planned it, we had 12 issues, but it was more decompressed, kind of, long form storytelling. And then when we quickly realized that we were going to be putting all this, on credit cards, so to speak, we're like, okay, we really have to be mindful of the story we want to tell, what matters most to us. Okay. And I remember Scott Snyder talking about it on his Substack or something like that, where he was talking about momentism. I think that's what he called it. Like, what are those kind of snap moments where it's either through the art, through the story, or is it a way where you can pair them both, where it's an snap moment and the art is also amazing. So we very much kind of reworked the story, not in a major way, but we definitely, condensed some things. I think truthfully, the version we are kickstarting now is 48 pages. I think originally that was the first 5 issues. And so we really just found a way to be like, okay, this doesn't matter. This doesn't, we're like, what does this matter? And so, again, to reemphasize, it was like, okay, what does it mean for Marcus and Caleb? What is this dynamic? And so that's just the kind of how we went through. So yes, we do have 6 issues, but technically they're 3. So what we're doing on our Kickstarter is oversized, double-sized issues, basically, where as a first-time creator, I personally felt asking $5 for 20 pages for like kind of an intro story was a hard ask. Again, I'm not a professional in a real way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I could have written said story in 20 pages. Maybe I could have. I don't know. But just where I'm at with the creative talents I have at the moment, I was like, okay, the story I want to tell needs to be done in 48 pages. And if we do more, great. I have a way where we can keep that story going. Or if it doesn't work for whatever reason, I at least feel happy that I can be done with this story and move on. But yes, we do have 3 Kickstarters in mind. I think we're going to do more, but at the same time, we'll see where the Kickstarter ends, because we did fund in a day, which is amazing. But
you did.
We are just we're always just trying to be mindful. Again, you don't want to, I hate it when people like, oh, we have a whole new universe. We have this, we have that. It's going to be this, it's going to be, and your eyes kind of glaze over because you're like, I don't want a new universe to get like lost in. Some people might, I don't know. But for me, when it's like a first time thing happening and like, oh, it's going to be this many issues or it's going to be this thing, I'm just like, ugh, let me read the first one. You know what I mean? And so we just very much just tried to have that mindset of like, hey, you guys tell us, like, we want to earn your dollar. So if you want more, cool. Here's the first one. You got to tell us what you think. And if you want more and it makes sense, we're going to try and do more. And we try to position the Kickstarter so that it then helps us find that, because again, I don't know if you saw, but I'm sure you did. I mean, like, we think the tiers are pretty reasonable considering everything we're offering, and the shipping's not crazy. And I mean, so yeah, I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, that's kind of how we thought of it all. So
yeah, and if anybody watching and or listening to this now live or in the future up until April 2nd, which happens to be my sister's birthday, so it's easy for me to remember, but that's 10 days from now. I've got the Kickstarter linked in the show notes, in the episode description, whatever you want it, the box with all the stuff that everybody usually ignores. The Kickstarter's linked in there, and it is already funded. So if you back, you're guaranteed to get the rewards that you're backing, which is insane. Like, that's such a weight to be able to lift off of your shoulders of the funding in the first day as a first-time creator. Like, that's insane, dude. So don't lose sight of that massive win as well, because holy shit.
I'm trying to keep that in mind, truthfully. Yes. I mean, again, it's you're just trying your best, right? And so like for me, I'm already thinking, okay, what about this and what about that? And then I need people like yourself to remind me, like, dude, the hardest part is like, you're still a first-time creator, because you know what I mean? Like, you can get swept up in it. Well, it's like, oh, well, it's not this, and it didn't do that number, or this, blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, no. It's your first one. You're doing fine. Like, it's okay. There's going to be more.
Right. Yeah. Like at that point, as first-time creators, like, I keep having to tell myself, we have to build an audience. Like, we need to have the readers that are saying, yes, whatever your story is, I'm bought in on it, literally and metaphorically. And so, like, keep making the story and keep telling the story and giving more stories with these characters, because I'm here to read it. And then every time you grow and you get a bigger readership and you bring in new readers, like, that's that ground up, boots on the ground approach that you have to take as a creator, because you can't, like, looking at this is the other reason why I don't pay attention ever to numbers, because you see creators or whatever have numbers on of like followers or subscribers or whatever on whatever social media platform, like, oh, they're easily going to hit that. But then you look at even like well-established creators that are doing Kickstarters where like maybe that's all they ever do is Kickstarter comics, and you look at their backer numbers and you're like, oh, they only have like 250 backers. Like, that's huge as a first-time creator, but like trying to scale it realistically, because you always want to have those high pie in the sky. Like, I'm going to have 1,000 backers. And then you're like, I have 70 backers. And hell yes, I have 70 backers. Like, that, those 70 people are laying the foundation that you then get to grow from on your next campaign. And I'm very much a proponent of celebrate the small victories. And so, like, seeing that you're funded, amazing. Seeing that you have over 100 backers, you're at 156 backers, which is insane. Like, that's so rad. And so, yeah, all that to say, just don't lose sight of the small victories along the way, but keep shooting high, because like, that's the dream. Is if you want to keep making, you got to keep shooting high, because the people that shoot low only ever stay low and don't get to grow and have new experiences and all the things all the time. I don't know if any of that made sense, but here we are.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, and that's the thing too, right? For my first one, like, I had an idea of how to potentially market it and package it, right? But at the same time, you have to actually do it in earnest. And so, like, again, some people may just think about the creative, and that's wonderful. But also when you have to get to the point of talking about it and marketing it, and first off, like, how many people, I think we were talking about, some people reach out to you and then they're not ready. And it's like, I knew when we were going to launch this, I had to be ready. So when I would reach out to people like yourself to be like, hey, I want to make this as easy as I possibly can. So all you have to do is just say, yep, sure, check out my calendar, or check out this. And you can just be like, I'm trying to make it easy for you. So all it is just a conversation for you. Because I don't want to put limiters in front of you to then say, it's too much work. Because I don't know what your schedule's like. I don't know what you got planned. And so I know it's a lot to think about, but if you can try your best to try and keep these things in mind as you progress and you go, then it just makes it easier for people to talk about. And so again, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's just, if you could try your best to just get all that in there as much as you can, whether that's pull quotes, your backer, or your how you design your page, to just kind of every little nuance you can, because every single aspect tells a story. How you present yourself is the story within the story. Like, perfect example, we're talking about me and how I made this. This is, hopefully you may not like Marcus, but maybe you like me, or maybe you like Simone. You like the story of the story. And so that's what I'm trying to share with everybody, to be like, hey, this is how I did it. So maybe you can glean something from it and make something better, make something different, make something whatever it may be. And it's just a matter of trying to share the knowledge that I've gained to hopefully make everything better. So, and that's what you're doing here, you know, hosting a podcast that does it with other creators.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've listened for the longest time. It's funny, I didn't like podcasts at all because I was just listening to the ones that didn't hit for me. I was listening to like the QVC, like, I'm here to sell a product. Look at this pen.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
And I know about the pen. Tell me about you. Like, why did you make the pen? What's special about this pen specifically? And so that's why when I started talking and thinking about doing the show, I was like, yes, like there's always going to be the sales pitch element to it, because it's like, this is a platform to promote your comic. Like, that's the point. And it's also relevant because of, I don't know if you saw the discourse happening with a recognized name went on a podcast and basically did a sales pitch, and then that podcaster said some really dumb stuff like, oh, I had to beg for people to back his book. And it's like, no, man, if you're on a podcast, that's the point. Like, that's the point of when you have a comic of going on a podcast, is it's to hang out with the people and have a good time, but also, like, it's a business, bro. Like, you got to sell your stuff. And one of the things,
no one else is going to do it for you. Like, no one's going to come and save you. Like, you can't expect other people to talk about you if you're not willing to kind of put yourself out there. I mean, I knew for a fact no one would care about my book. Like, oh, it's another mech thing, or it's another kaiju thing. Cool. But I'd have to sell you on, not necessarily me, but just be like, hey, this is why we did it. I'm trying to do something special. I'm trying to tell something that hopefully you resonate with. And the fact is like, you can't expect anyone else to help you. Like, I think I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, you cannot expect someone to save you. Like, no one is going to do that. No matter what it is, whatever creative endeavor, you have to do it. And that's like the hard thing some people may have, is like, well, I'm not this, or I'm not eloquent, or I stumble. I say way too many things. I'm already seeing clips of myself where I'm like, I'm going to take a shot every time I hear the word light come out of my mouth. And I'm like, you know what I mean? At this point, I'd be drunk. But then again, it's actually a good thing, because then you're like, oh, I could be better. And ever since then, that was 2 months ago since I saw that clip of myself still talking about this Kickstarter. But now I know that I at least can be better. I can try to be better. And I think that's the thing, whether it's, you know, your writing, your art, your personal speaking, or how you present yourself on a podcast, is like, you have to start. And then hopefully you just keep getting better and better and better, as long as you don't stop, you know, whatever that means to you. So I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I love that soapbox, because I keep seeing the memes go around and stuff. And every time I see it, I reshare it. Like, you don't have to have amazing art and then make it. You just have to make art and then make it amazing. Like, you just got to start doing the thing and then get out of you, and then you can learn from, oh, I could have done this better. Could have been different here, or I could have used this color combination. Maybe. Okay, cool. Now you have steps to try to, grow 5% every time you're doing something. And that's always like, there's also a wrestler, Daniel Bryan, or not Bryan Danielson, whichever company name you want to use, said, like, every match should be 1% better than your last one. And I take that takeout match and just put in whatever it is that you make. Every time you do a show, it should be 1% better. Every comic you make should be 1% better. Every piece of art, every dance, every musical performance, every whatever it is you're doing, pottery, crochet, thing, macrame, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Just make the thing, and then the next time you make the thing, make it 1% better. And I think that is crucial, because I get in my head a lot, and it's like, this is no good. Like, I shouldn't even be doing this, because who cares? Like, this is not, I don't think it looks how it should, but it's not, you're limiting yourself when you think like that, is what you're making might resonate with people. And you don't know that if you don't take the chance to put it there and be like, hey, I know I can learn and this, but like, I made a thing. Look at it. What feedback do you have? Like, you have to be open to receiving feedback. And I'm one of those weird people that genuinely appreciates getting feedback when it's constructive. Like, just having that. And that's not, to be clear, that's not people like just trolling the internet comments. That's not helpful feedback. But the person that messages you and says, hey, I read your book and I really like the thing. The thing that stuck out to me that I just wanted to let you know, like, your pacing could have been a little bit different in this piece and could have really picked up the entire, like, those are the people that want to help you. So let them help you. Like, you know, it's just admitting, it's the humility of like, I'm new at this. I have a lot to learn, and plenty of other people have that knowledge that they can share with me if they're willing to. So cool. I should be receptive to it, or at least hear it. And you're like, nope, sorry, like, that doesn't work. But I appreciate you pointing out pacing. I'll think about that more as I create the next one. It's that 1% better. Like, you should always be trying to improve. So how do you improve on what you've got now for the next iteration of Marcus Walker?
Well, that's it. That's the thing. So I've already written the issues, right? And now I'm going to hopefully get some feedback and see what works, what doesn't. Because also I want to try and see, you know, does the story I originally intended it to be, is that the one that they may want to read? And so again, I'm going to, you know, take some feedback and see how I can improve some things. But I mean, now it's already got me thinking for other projects. I mean, again, I would love to get Marcus to the you know, these 3 oversized Kickstarters and hopefully get the trade. And then if Simone and I want to continue that, you know, our story will leave it at a place where we could do more adventures. But at the same time, if we decide to say this is the end for now, then cool, we can get there. But now how I'm constructing and looking and seeing things and just kind of taking it all in, now that I'm going through the process of like, okay, what's going to make sense to me? What speaks to me? How do I present that next thing? How do I want to market it the right way? Because, for example, my next book is a horror book, and that's with Kevin Keane, and he's from the Spawn camp. And I'm already thinking, okay, I can't wait to reach out to the horror community. I can't wait to reach out to this community. Because, just for context, the best way I can explain it without spoiling it is think of the 1990s, The Mummy, The Crow meets Jason Momoa's Chief of War. So it's kind of got this indigenous tiki thing, right? So could I reach out to the tiki community? I'm a huge tiki fan. I love tiki drinks. I love the tiki atmosphere. Could we find ways to collaborate there? So it's just, how does your brain work and how can you improve? And I guess in the marketing side, but for like writing, it's just like, how can I put more of myself into it? And how can I keep twisting it in a way that feels, first off, authentic, but also just something special and unique for the reader? Because I'm already trying to think of the next idea, and it's like, I love this, but is this different enough? Can this separate it from enough? But because at the end of the day, every story's been told 1,000 times over, and I'm sure there's similarities no matter how hard you try. And I'm sure there are some people who are truly unique, but that's why they're geniuses. You know what I mean? And so I'm just trying I'll say for where I'm at right now, I'm just trying to think of how can I keep making this better. So I'm not only surprising myself, but potentially the readers. I think David Bowie said it best. I'm paraphrasing. It's like you're swimming in the pool, and when your feet just start to like not touch the bottom, you know what I mean? That's where that's when you know you're onto something. And so I'm constantly trying to push myself past my comfortability, let's say, you know, because with Marcus, it's like, okay, I want to try and make this kind of Joseph Campbell-esque story that doesn't kind of maybe follow in the same pitfalls that most mechs and kaiju stories do. And then my next one is a horror book. How do you not fall into those tropes and pitfalls? And I think the best way I can do that is just put myself into it as much as I possibly can, because like if I had to, if since this is a music oriented show, oh, I can share this because you'll appreciate it. With Marcus Walker, it's more of like, that's more of like metalcore and punk rock. So think of like Ice Nine Kills, Beartooth, Bring Me the Horizon, that kind of metalcore kinetic energy. And then my horror book is more like deathcore, more like Whitechapel, Slaughter to Prevail, Lorna Shore. And then the next one I have is more like EDM electronic focus because it's just more sci-fi based. And so I'm just trying to play in all these things and bring them into a way that looks different and unique, but it's more me, if that makes sense. Like I think the best way to be better is just to push yourself, but also just show more of yourself. Like, what do you feel comfortable showing and sharing with people? And it's usually the parts you want to hide onto the most that are the ones that resonate the most. And yeah.
Isn't it weird how that's the case too, though? Like the stuff that you're like, there's no way this is going to resonate with anybody because it's too weird, it's too out there, it's too whatever. And then you mention it at some point and you suddenly have someone else like, oh my God, me too. Like, thank you for saying, because I thought I was the only one that had that weird, unique experience. And so now like I've had several of those conversations not related to comics or music at all, of just like life things with people that I trust and can, fully open up all of those very deep, dark corners of my experiences of like, hey, so I had this thing happen and this sucks to talk about, but like someone's got to talk about it. And I feel like that's part of just who I talk about the stuff no one wants to talk about. And so like here, and then having other people go, oh my God, me too. Like, how do you deal with that? And suddenly, just because you take that chance of like that you trust, because you have to do it with people that you trust, but then being able to like open up about that stuff, you're going to find people that immediately latch onto those things. And so if you can work that into storytelling, it doesn't have to be the deepest, darkest mind holes that you've got. Like, that's fine. You don't need to open those up unless you want to. Like, your prerogative, you're the creator. You can do that and work those very real things, how you break away from, oh, so this is just Pacific Rim. Got it. Because you're right. Like, every story has happened. And as a creator, it's getting harder and harder, more stories that get told, to find a new angle or to find something that's fresh or unique or different and isn't just, oh, this is, that thing plus this thing equals your thing, right? And you're like, well, no, but I guess kind of. And to your point earlier, like, whether or not you want people to do that, they're going to do that because they have to make it make sense in their head, so that they have a framework of like what they're getting into. And that's where the marketing and the business acumen side of things starts to really take off of like, well, yeah, but also like, what if this had happened instead? Would that change how you think about those franchises? And oh, well, yeah, because that never happened in those. Well, yeah, it happens in this book. Take a look, like, check it out. I would love to put it in your hands. And that's that weird sweet spot challenge thing, like the impossible nut to crack, to figure out how do you work your way into that. And it just takes practice.
Yeah, 100%. I'm trying I'm telling myself that right now. I mean, my friend, like, exactly what I need to hear. Because like I'm at MegaCon right now, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like so many things, so many people doing so many wonderful things, and I'm trying not, Thief is a comparison of joy, or is this, and so I'm just trying my best not to compare. But you're just like, how it's easy too, because you see these people, but then you realize they struggled too. I mean, Jason Aaron, I remember hearing on podcasts, he like, oh, there was like 6 years where I wrote really bad comics that nobody read, but I still wrote them. And I'm like, okay, so maybe, again, not to put any bad things, but it's like, maybe I have to go through my journey of whatever those comics are to then hopefully get to the thing, because, Marcus took 3 years, and I'm glad this is the version that's coming out, because if any prior version would have come out, I probably would have regretted it, if I'm being honest, whether that would have been a version where I had a former publisher putting it out and I had to make the very hard decision to walk away from my first time being published and saying, you know what, I'd rather be the thing I want it to be than to potentially compromise that thing. And again, I don't want to put anyone down, but it was just one of those hard moments of like, yeah, I'd rather risk it and it maybe not do as well, or maybe it does do well, but it's the thing that I am most proud of, that I could look at it and be like, I did the thing. Because as you know, how many people come up and say like, I want to do that thing one day. Well, why not? Oh, I'm this or I'm that. And it's like, you know what, this is the thing I want, for better or for worse. And so I totally agree with you on that sentiment.
Yeah. And damn, good on you for like standing and keeping it as authentic to your wanted it, instead of like, oh, this will get us a broader reach, but I got to tweak. And like, that's always, I feel like, a conversation that when you start talking about working with a publisher, like what are their requirements going to be? Like, do they have story changes that they are asking you because it'll be better to market, or are they just taking it as is? Like, how do you do that? And so good on you for saying like, no, this is the story, and I would rather do it my way and keep it authentic to me than to sacrifice the story in order to work with you. And also, just as a fun aside, while you're there, if you see Kevin Stokes, let Kevin know that American Demon says, hey.
Okay.
Amidst the 100,000 insane people that are there, whatever that number is, that I both wish I was there and also am happy that I'm not there. Because So, what else do I have? Oh, that you mentioned, that like this version is the right version to have come out and not any of the previous versions, that like led you to this point. And so like, what were some of the setbacks or some of the things, and again, only share what you feel comfortable sharing, but like, what are some of the things that you dealt with that then you had to like juke and adjust and move forward into what Marcus became?
I think the most honest answer and the best answer I can give was that when I was potentially with said publisher, it was trying to fit the 20 to 24 page monthly swing. And I knew how originally Marcus was set up, that if we're selling it as a book that is inspired by Mech v Kaiju, and originally this is how the old style of the book was, it was going to be a hard sell for me as a creator to say that's a fair statement for other things, because our story weaves and bobs and goes through all of that, but it's at the end of the day, it is a family drama. And there are mechs and kaijus, but those things don't matter if the characters don't matter. So, the original issues had more heart and less action, and then I had different action set pieces. And so that was one of the things where I'm like, this isn't work. This version of Marcus for a monthly release would not work. And again, as a first-time creator, that could have been on me. It could have been on the team. It could have been for whatever reason. But I knew the version that married them the best was potentially the version that would be the 48-page one. And so when I had the conversation with my team of like, hey, I want to do the 48-page version that blends all of these things. It's a tight, meaty story that people can kind of sink their teeth into, that I feel comfortable pitching in a real way, because I knew it hits all the beats. It hits all the kind of kinetic energy, all those things that I know people are going to be expecting going into the story, but also going to hopefully be surprised by. It was going to be a much different story than the one that would have been. So I think that's the biggest thing of like having the idea of like, I think I'm going to have to leave because I need to make it a larger story, and I don't know if I can afford it in this version. And so I think that was the biggest hurdle. And also, if I'm going to be completely honest, when it came to marketing and promoting it, I was very fortunate to have Stephen Maida review the book, because his manager works with my old boss from Disney. And I knew going into this, as a first-time creator, you kind of want to stack the deck in your favor that is authentic to you, and one that is not, lying or anything like that. So I knew I did that work. I'm the person who got the Sean Murphy cover. I'm the person who got the team together, not to make it about me, but I didn't want the exposure, and I didn't want those flowers to go to somebody else. I wanted those flowers to be on us, because again, I don't want to speak poorly of anybody. A publisher would be very much like, oh yeah, we did all of that. And it's like, no, you didn't. We did.
You didn't.
Me and my team. And so I very much, for better or for worse, wanted it to be like, hey, Simone worked his ass off for this thing. I want to make sure he's given full credit. I have a team full of amazing, talented people that I pulled every favor, made every deal I could so that it would work out. So it'd be like, hey, this first time creator and his creative team is putting together a package that hopefully makes you feel like, oh, I trust them because this feels right. You know what I mean? Like, when the Kickstarter's done, the book's going to be done. We have Stephen Maida, we have Sean Murphy, we have Sia Oyam, we have all these people putting it in together to be like, hey, I know Kickstarter can be a very hard place to navigate, whether that's quality of books or quality of creators, because we know sometimes creators don't always hold their end of the bargain. And we very much wanted to put all this together as a package. So when we say, hey, this is why we're doing it, is because we wanted to be responsible for that. And so that's the selfish side of me, outside of trying to make sure we swung the 20, like the monthly period of it also.
Yeah. Well, how very punk rock of you to DIY that yourselves. Because I do think, as someone who just has that in their core, like being able to say, yeah, we did that. Like, we did the work. We did the late nights putting the Kickstarter page together. We did the copy editing and the writing and the blurb writing and the social media posting and the marketing. And like, we did that. It's definitely something that's much easier to be able to look at and have pride in, because it's 100% your vision, your story, your characters, your creation, your comic. And like, there's something beautiful about being able to do that. So,
thank you. But also, let me add to that. I would not be here, Simone and I would not be here, if it wasn't for people like yourself who are so kind to give us the time to talk about it. Because please don't get it wrong, for those who are listening or watching. It is people like yourself, Chris, and all the other ones who believe in indie comics and who are able to kind of gather around and, talk about it, because this stuff doesn't happen, unless it's people like yourself willing to have the conversations to provide a space. So, not to pivot too much, but I just want to make sure I say that thank you, because it takes people like you to make these things happen. So I want to make sure I want to make sure I'm very clear. Like, it takes people like yourself just as much as it takes the creative team to do it. And so I always like to preface it, because I don't want to take too much credit.
Super fair. And thank you for that. Because you've been on some really cool shows, and I'm sure the tour is not done yet. Because the more that I get into like the making side of it, the more that I am also looking at other shows of like, well, how do I promote, like, who do I go and talk to promote this thing? And how do I get this in front of more audiences? Because I know my people and they know me, and like, we have very overlapping Venn diagrams. But like, if I have a horror book, how do I get on a horror podcast? If I have a music based book, how do I get on like a punk rock podcast? And this is very punk rock because it's a comic book. It's not music, but like, it's about, and so it's thinking about those things that suddenly are the like challenge. And it's like, making the comic, it's not easy, but that's the easy part. It's everything after you make it that comes, that then is the like, oh, I have to figure this out. And it goes back to that business brain that we mentioned earlier.
And I absolutely love that, because, for example, I'll just use that. I have to give the kaiju community and the mech community been fantastic, because yes, even though those things lend themselves to anime and manga and stuff like that, you're almost reaching out to them to see if they want to be comic book people. So for like horror people, yes, horror and comics always make sense, but what if there's a person who loves horror but hasn't gotten to comics yet, and you put out your horror book, and that's the thing that brings them into comics? So yes, we can always double down, like, to sell to comics for comics' sake, but what are those extra things out that your book has, whether it's music, because again, punk rock and comics make sense, but maybe not to someone who's all about punk rock or music. You know what I mean? So then you potentially convert a music fan into a comics fan. Now you're in a whole new a whole new field, because you're not selling to someone who's constantly buying that, but you're finding new people. So that's like the best thing. If your stories can reach new audiences outside of comics, then like sky's the limit. So I'm also thinking of that as well, of like, how do you blend this all in, all those things we're talking about. So I well said.
I love it. All right, so those are officially my notes, but I have two more things that I want to do.
Sure.
The first is we're going to pose and I'm going to take a screenshot and then use that as the YouTube thumbnail.
Sure.
Mainly because this makes my life easier and
Absolutely.
we get to have some fun. All right. Some sort of battle, something. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, fierce. The other thing is I love doing this show. Because I get to talk to people with all different backgrounds, experiences, who live all over the globe. This is an international show, which is insane and so freaking cool to be able to say. But I love leaning into that because we all share the similarity of storytelling and creating comics and the love for the medium. And so to lean into that a little bit, I like to end every stream with just turning over the floor to every creator that comes on. And so this is a chance, like if you want to do a sales pitch for Marcus, go for it. If you would rather talk about how cool kaiju are and how a kaiju would absolutely destroy a mech, that's cool too. The content to me doesn't matter at all. I just want to make sure that you've got some space to share whatever message it is that you want people to hear from you. Normally I give people a heads up about this, but we were so just like hit the ground running before we started that I didn't get a chance. So I hope that this doesn't completely catch you off guard, but the floor is yours, my friend. So let us know what you're thinking.
I'm going to respectfully say, first off, thank you. This has been wonderful. And if you have gotten to this point, I'm very grateful, and, check it out if it makes sense. Again, I'm just happy to be a part of this, happy to kind of, promote Marcus. And if anyone thinks anything I've said is helpful in any way, I'm happy to help them. And I guess if I want to make it fun and end it, if you had to pick, if you're on a desert island and this desert island had 3 records for whatever reason, and you could only play said 3 records, what would those 3 records be for you, my friend?
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. I'm so bad with this question because music for me is emotional. And so it's like, what emotional state, like what 3 albums would cover the widest emotional state? I would probably say Take Off Your Pants and Jacket by Blink-182. That was pivotal for me in high school, and I was actually just listening to it this morning. I had some weird dreams last night, and so I woke up and I was like, I just need to listen to this album and wear my Blink-182 shirt.
There you
go. So that's one. I would have to say Combat Rock by The Clash, because that album was the one that opened the doors to punk rock for me. And it's got a wide range of styles on it. The third one, it would probably be Reliant K's 2 Lefts Don't Make a Right, but 3 Do. Again, just because like there's a lot of songs on there that when I don't know what to listen to, it's usually one of those 3 records that I put on, and then suddenly I figure out what mood I'm going to be in, and then that leads me into what playlist I chase down. So that, Blink-182, Reliant K, and The Clash. That's also my top 3 favorite bands, so that makes sense.
Perfect.
What would your 3 be?
Ooh, so I think for me, the first one, if I'm talking albums, I think, let me see if I remember them correctly. I think the Ghost Inside's self-titled, because of they're a band that went through a lot of, they had a major accident, they recovered, they went through that. I have a Ghost Inside tattoo. So I think that would be one. I hope it's called The Downfall of Us All. A Day Remembers, The Downfall of Us All record, or Homesick, or whatever that album is, the one with the purple and blue. I'm terrible at that. And then my other record, I think it's gonna be a tie. I know that's always a no. I'll give an honest answer. I think it's the Surface by Beartooth. But if I had to give bands, if there are bands that are my favorite, I think it's A Day to Remember, Beartooth, and Ice Nine Kills. Those are my. I'm such a metalcore punk rock guy. I mean, Ice Nine Kills was originally a ska band. Now they're like a metal band,
dude. And their ska is great. I had no idea until like that was one of those weird like music trivia things. Like, what's your favorite ska band turned metalcore? I was like, there's a band that did that? Like, what? And then I went back and found it and I was like, holy crap, this is fun.
Oh yeah, I mean Spencer's a huge ska guy. He has a Goldfinger tattoo. I think he had Real Big Fish with them on tour when they opened up for Metallica. The song awesome. I mean, they did a song for Batman called the Laughing Track or Laugh Track, and that has horns. So I'm a big ska guy too. I grew up with Real Big Fish, and so so I think my three big bands would be Ice Nine Kills, A Day to Remember, and Beartooth. Those are my thing. I mean, dude, I grew up on Warped Tour, so
yeah, same. That's where it's hard to answer because actually I was thinking Family Force 5 in
Earthquake?
there.
Oh yeah,
like dude, they're so fun, and I saw that they were coming back this year for Warped Tour for the Long Beach, and I was like, man, I'm in Ohio. Do you know how hard it is to get to Long Beach, let alone like pay for the concert tickets and all this stuff? But hopefully this means more Family Force 5 music because they're so good. In This Moment is great. Linkin Park, of course, is solid. But yeah, like, dude, and A Day to Remember is like legit, super good. My wife actually is the one that got me into them because she loves them, and she was like, "No, you got to listen to this song," and I was like, "Okay." And so she like put it on, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, that's the one." And
it always pops off.
It's she loves the music that has any sort of music, and then there's a random vocal. Oh. Like dude, that gets her to pop every single time. And that's one of those tracks. Like, Chris, this has been a blast. I feel like we barely scratched the surface on a lot of things. So happy to see the crowdfunding campaign for Marcus Walker KINGSLAYER Protocol has funded. You got 10 days left. It is linked in the episode description below. You can find that. I've got your social media handle, which literally I just typed that in everywhere and you popped right up. I was like, this is incredible. I love this. It's a way to go for self-branding awareness because that matters too.
Indeed.
But all of those notes and more are in the description. So make sure you check that out. Find Chris, support the comics that he's going to be making. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for just digging in and setting your heels and going deep about the creation process and where the story comes from and all those things. Cause I know I appreciate it. So awesome. That's going to do it for this live stream. We're out of stuff to talk about to officially. And so, hang tight. I got logistics for you after I end it. But for everybody else, what's a good podcast without a good tagline? This one's my new one. Go do what's good for you, punks, and make some art because it's good for you. We're out of here.